My son is Jeff, and when he was 13, he was diagnosed with autoimmune hepatitis. He managed it for 10 years, led an active life, and then at 25, thought he had a really bad flu and he ended up in the hospital. We arrived at the hospital to find out that he was end-stage liver failure and without a liver, had 2 weeks to live. We were called into a room 3 times to tell us to make arrangements, and he wasn't going to make it through the night. He had slipped into a coma. He was on life support. He got an infection in his blood that went to his heart and his brain. He has a permanent brain injury, but functions very well today. He ended up paralyzed from the neck down, was told he would never walk again. His kidneys started failing, and he was on dialysis for his kidneys. And he got an infection in his eyes while he was in there and almost went blind. So he had his liver transplant, and then in 2019 his kidneys were failing. They were operating at 6%. We thought he would go on the transplant list after 6 years on dialysis. Now he's 31, and they said no. His medical history was so complicated that we needed to find a living donor. So there we are now as a family thinking, how do you ask someone to give your child an organ? And my husband and I sat there with tears just pouring down our faces thinking, well, we might lose our son. I went to the news media, I went to newspapers, I went to social media. It took me about a week to wrap my head around even doing that. And they came out of the woodwork.
And I remember reading the story and I thought, oh, somebody's got to help them. And I just sort of took a moment and thought, someone? If I want somebody to help me sometime, I need to be willing to help them. I phoned up the transplant people and said, what is it involved? Am I safe? Can I do this? Can I live with one kidney? What's the risks? They were very, very informative. Went through a myriad of tests. Took me about 8 months from start to finish. And I mean, I knew what was going to happen. I knew I was going to be the person. That's why I kept saying to Tracy, just believe in me, just believe in me. And every time I failed another sugar test, I said, don't worry, it's going to be me, just believe in me. But how am I going to tell my 87-year-old mother? So I was in Nova Scotia with her visiting, and a story came on the news about somebody in Nova Scotia that needed the kidney. I thought, well, karma. So I told her, I'm going to do that, Mom. She said, what? I said, I'm going to do that. I said, what do you think about that? She took a couple of minutes, she said, I'd do the same thing. So I knew then it was go.
And I can honestly say the day he woke up after the surgery, there was glimpses of my son coming back with that new kidney. It was like there's a fog that lifted, and he got the color back in his eyes and in his face and his sense of humor. And we got home and he came in and knocked on my bedroom door. He's never done that. And he came in, he said, can I come in? And he said, does this mean that I never have to have dialysis again? Like, he couldn't wrap his head around the fact that he was going to have his life back. She literally gave him his life back.
The kidney started working pretty much immediately. And then I got to know him, because before that, the few times I saw him, he was just a shell of a man, really. He didn't have any energy. He didn't have any hope for the future. He was going to dialysis 3 times a week. That was his life. And so over the last 3 years, I've gotten to know this young man and see his sense of humor. You go through your life, you get up in the morning, you have your breakfast, go to work, come home, take care of the kids or whatever. You haven't got time to listen to those stories, but since I've been a donor, I talk about it any opportunity I get, and that's what we have to do. We have to make it real, make them understand that you can make a difference, and it's really not that big of an ask. And if I had 3 kidneys, I'd give another one away. You'll never regret it, and the hope and the spirit that comes back for that person, it's awesome. It's a gift to me as well.
That kid is the most determined, strong person I've ever met in my entire life, and he just inspired all of us to keep going and keep pushing. He's had a brain surgery since. He's had surgery on his feet and his legs. He has persevered, and today he is walking, he's driving, he's going to the gym twice a week. He's looking at getting back into the workforce. to get a job after 10 years. And none of that could be possible if it hadn't been for the 2 donors. There are no words. How do you thank someone for giving you your child?